Again, everybody, welcome. It's really nice to be able to be here and be speaking couple first today. First time that I'll be speaking, and it's going to be going up on our YouTube channel. So special shout out to Reverend Kelly. She's not here, but yay, Reverend Kelly! Yay! And Reverend Kelly's persevering. She's got a really severe back issue going on, but she still made it in today, even though she was in the emergency room last night. So that shows her dedication. And also a special shout out to Reverend Rudy, who is the inspiration and the manifestation of our new setup here at the Miracle Center. Reverend Rudy. I have to admit, I was not in support of the change, and now I am. Shifts happen. Okay. All right. So. It's great, guys. It's finally a sunny day. I feel like we haven't had a weekend in a long time. It's a sunny day, so I'm glad that I'm able to give my talk today. And my talk is titled, Along the Path of Enlightenment, Crucifixion Happens. Then what? Now, the reason that I came up with this talk, or my inspiration for this talk, was first of all, I think that many of us in this room have studied A Course in Miracles for quite some time. I know, just looking around the room, I see students of 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, students of A Course in Miracles. And at the same time that we struggle, I think sometimes we just need to acknowledge the progress that we have made. Mm-hmm. That many times we live in the enlightened state. We are actually living it, experiencing it. It's just not during the meditation. You know, when we drop all of our worries and our concerns and our to-do lists and whatever it is. A lot of us are lights of the world, just like the song that we sing says. We're going out there and we are inducing miracles in our relationships and with others. And when they see that we have a different way of thinking, it allows them, it gives them permission to let go of their thinking. So we are healing our own minds, and we are living in that state as well. Now, that's my experience, and that's my experience of many of you. It's also in the Course as well. The Course says this, I will go with you to the Holy One, and through my perception, he can bridge the little gap. It says it in the Course in Miracles. The space in our minds between enlightenment and the ego is small. Now, I don't know if that's true for all of our brothers and sisters on the planet at this moment. I know it's true for my community of Course in Miracles students here, and for the larger Course in Miracles community that we've experienced at conferences and through the internet and conversations and classes, all the ways in which we connect with others. The Course also says this. Oh, and by the way, the Course mentions gap 77 times in the text, and often it's preceded by the word little. The gap is carefully concealed in fog, and misty pictures rise to cover it with a vague, uncertain forms and changing shapes, forever unsubstantial and unsure. So I think the important part of that line is, yes, the gap is small, but the ego is clever. It says carefully concealed, changing forms, rise to cover it. So we get different problems, you know. We encounter different people. Some people appear to come and to go in our lives, and sometimes we wonder why. Why does this happen? Why do things seem on sometimes unsubstantial and unsure ground? And this leads me to the important and core part of my talk. In the reading that Reverend Vincent did today, the first line of the reading says, in crucifixion is redemption laid. So that little gap that we often talk about or that we hear in the Course is still the healing that needs to be done. And sometimes we experience life as really sucking. Okay? Sometimes life sucks. Because we experience it as so. We experience sometimes really, really challenging events. And I reflect upon that in my own experience. And I think to myself, you know, when life sucks, I get pissed off. You know, I do. That's my first response. I'm like, you know, I'm a Course in Miracles student. I'm an entitled Course in Miracles student. All right? I don't want to suffer anymore. Right? I don't want to feel pain on a conscious level. However, the Course tells us that in our crucifixion is really that's where our healing is. That's the remaining healing that we have to go. It's a little gap, folks, but that little gap is still painful at times. Now, besides getting angry, what's the next thing that I experience I do and some of my brothers and sisters do? Is what I've talked about here before, and that's the infamous blame game. That's what we want to do. We feel bad. Somebody else is guilty, right? Somebody else is guilty. It's my significant other, my husband, my wife, my kids. It's the Republicans. It's the Democrats. It's the conservatives. It's the liberals. It's the terrorists. It's the Islamic State. It's this and that. Blah, 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 blah. On and on and on and on. And as long as you and I buy into that perception, we're going to get more of what we have, and that's suffering. In my own experience, what I've learned as a Course student is that when I'm in my crucifixion moments, I get a little more willingness now. You know, what the Course says is that, you know, our miscreations have a limit, and I think that that's what Jesus tells us in A Course in Miracles. That you can miscreate, but we're only going to let you go so far. And the more and more you come, I believe, you become a Course student and you experience the enlightenment and you experience those good feelings and you come to service and you feel the love here that's vibrating. It's like, well, I can have that or I can have my suffering. Which am I going to choose? Now, another thing that I sometimes want to do is what I call spiritual bypass surgery. In essence, this is the ineffective ways in which we try to deal with our suffering, using the cover of spirituality. And I'm just going to share with you some things that I've done. One thing that I would do is I would try to anticipate my ego. So, like in the summertime, I'm a teacher, right? So in the summertime, I tend to meditate more. And I think about all the things in my workplace that bother me. Or in my life, whatever, relationships, but a lot of times workplace. I have several colleagues I work with that have been challenging. And I pray for them, and I forgive them, and I visualize this and that. And then I get back the first day at work, and it's the same. You know, it's this. I have the same kind of, you know, I have the same kind of challenges. And so that has taught me that my healing usually needs to take place in midst of the crucifixion. That I need to be, when the darkness is coming up, I need to address it then. I need to pray then. I need to ask for the miracle. I need to use my spiritual tools and technology. And as I was saying before service, we live in this wonderful tech world. I believe that all of us have the highest spiritual technology on the planet, and that is A Course in Miracles. That technology will get us to enlightenment, I believe, faster than any of the world's spiritual thought systems. And I think some of them are great, but I just think, for me, what I see, ours is the fastest route there. Now, another kind of obstacle, I believe, to healing is the denial of the dark feelings. And I want to use the Course to tell us that the Course doesn't say we have to deny anything. This is what the Course says in chapter 4. When your mood tells you that you have chosen wrongly, And this is so whenever you are not joyous, then this need not be. It doesn't say don't have a bad mood. It doesn't say not have a bad feelings. Listen what it says in the rest of this chapter. When you are sad, know this need not be. Depression comes from a sense of being deprived of something you do not have. When you are anxious, realize that anxiety comes from the capriciousness of the ego and know that this need not be. When you feel guilty, remember that the ego has indeed violated the laws of God, but you have not. So the Course is telling us that, giving us permission to have these feeling states. And actually one of the most damaging things, and we know this from modern psychology, to do is to deny or repress the bad feelings. And we do lots of stuff. We all do it. We distract ourselves. We do addictions. We do many, many things so that we don't have to deal with our present state and our current feelings. And the Course tells us we don't have to do this. In fact, if we want to use the greatest spiritual technology on the planet, the best thing to do is, as soon as you start having those feelings, use your spiritual technology. Go right to the Course. Ask Jesus for the miracle. Ask Jesus to go to the Holy Spirit, right? That's what we do. Whatever, you go ask Spirit. Whatever your tools for using the Course in Miracles, do it. Sometimes I write. Sometimes I have to talk to someone. Whatever it may be. So I want to share some recent experiences where I've had the Crucifixion Experience and talk to you, just explain my process through that. Actually, I had planned for this talk, last week, but I did have a crucifixion experience at work, and basically, it revolved around. I was in position to organize. I have to organize the college application process for the students that I work with. I work with students with disabilities. They have an education plan. In high school, part of their education plan is that we need to provide them with the process to get to college. So we work with other members of the school and the city, mostly City College of San Francisco, to do this. But I'm just one amongst many, and I supervise case managers for these students, and I had prepared a process to do this. And one of my case managers this year has just been really not doing parts of the paperwork part of the job. And on the day that this workshop, I was planning to have a workshop set up, did a lot of work to set this workshop up where the students would come out of class, they would go to the computer lab, and they would make their application to City College. Well, this particular case manager had 5 students that needed to come to this workshop. And none of them came. So, what we do, we call them out of class, right? We have class lists, we call them out of class. But I was pissed, because I had done a lot of work for this, and I really feel like it's our responsibility. These students, the reason they have this plan and these resources is because, we're supposed to. Because they need this kind of help. They need this kind of assistance, right? Those of us with more are supposed to provide those with love. It's a Course spirit. It's love. It's like providing love where it's needed and all that, right? So anyway, that was my perception at that moment. And I was really annoyed with this person. And I thought about talking to the person, but I know enough from Course teaching, thank goodness, that I shouldn't talk to this person while I was angry. And so I turned it over to Spirit, shared it with some friends, my frustration about it. And, my mind began to shift. And it began to see things from a different point of view. And really, by Thursday, it was kind of healed. This perception was kind of healed with this particular person. And what I got from that is that, Peter, this guy is doing the best that he can. That's the message I got from Spirit. He's kind of doing the best that he can. He had an experience with another colleague earlier in the year that was very disturbing to him. He was called a name in front of students by this crazy colleague of mine. And I think that is impacting his work performance. Now, I wasn't guided to go and talk to him about it or say anything about it, but I was guided to look at my own response and look at my own part of it. And what I got was, I could have been clearer in the directions. Some of my directions were through email, some of them were at the meeting, but I didn't give directions from A to Z. So that was my part of it. But the deeper part of it was to look at my beliefs. Like, why is it that I am feeling upset because somebody else isn't doing what I want them to do? You know? And that's the breakthrough. Many of you have been here, been at my talks for years and years, and I've talked about this struggle I have with my supervisory position at my school. And wow, that was a breakthrough. Look at your beliefs around what you think should happen. Mm-hmm. And so, that's what I did. And part of my belief system is around that control, that need to control, and have things go the way I think they should go. Well, if you're a spiritual person, you know we can't always control outcomes. We can do what we can do, right? And what we're guided to do. That does not mean that we're going to get the outcome that we want or we think is right. But we know in spirit that all things work out for good. And we have to have that faith. And I have to have that faith as I look at those situations. The other thing that came to mind as well was, my ego was involved. I have a lot of people that come to me, counselors and people in the College and Career Center and the principal. What are you doing for these students? They don't come to the case managers, they come to me. So I'm accountable, And I felt resentful, that, I have to. So it's kind of like my status in the building as well. Well, what's that about, right? Yes, I have a certain amount of responsibility, and I can do what I can do. And if somebody wants to attack me, like it says in the Course, project onto me their feelings of guilt, well, that's their issue. I don't have to buy into that. I can simply say, this is what I did. I provided them with the information, and I don't have to judge them. I don't have to judge the people that are attacking me. I can just do what I'm guided to do. And that's freeing for me. That feels like freedom. That feels like letting go. So, the Course talks about this. It says that we're often, the secret to salvation is that we're doing this unto ourselves. My belief system is triggered by that incident with my case manager. And I can heal it now, or it's going to come up again another time. So I'm hoping that it's healed now. And then I have more enlightenment. The other example I want to give is Donald Trump. So a couple of you know that probably 6 weeks ago, I was convinced that Donald Trump was a fascist. And I was in a lot of fear around this guy. And there's some justification for that. There was, now we're hearing that some of the far right-wing white supremacist groups actually make phone calls on his behalf. He doesn't endorse it, but they do. They kind of do this. But then, interestingly enough, Al Jazeera wrote an article. Al Jazeera is kind of like the Middle East Arabic news organization that gives an alternative to the Western view. And they wrote an article that said that Donald Trump is really a populist. That he kind of expresses the point of view of, the nativists, those people in the country who are not necessarily like what we might call the working class, if we have that anymore, but maybe the lower middle class, something like that, of the dominant ethnic origin, white folk. And that's he gives expression to their concerns and their fears. And that's the source of his, that's kind of the source of his power and his base. And so I was really forced to look at that. And, I have to be honest, I hope my mom doesn't watch this, but my mom has many of these similar kind of points of view. And I was in a big argument with my mom over break about this guy and about where the Republican Party was going for. And then I have to look at that. Why is it I'm in fear about who's running the country, right? I have to look at that. And I have to look at that and say, what's going on? So what I've been able to do is say, I don't agree with Donald Trump's, many of his policies. But you know what I do agree with? He says he wants to fix the country's infrastructure. He wants to build roads. He wants to fix the bridges. He wants to fix the dams. And he wants our airports to be world class. And you know what? I fly fairly frequently. That would be a really good idea. Because if you fly to another country, folks, and then experience most of our airports, they don't fit up. They don't stand up to that quality. And now San Francisco, I have to say, is different. San Francisco is pretty cool. It's a pretty good airport. But some of the other ones I've been in around the country, not so good. So I'm shifting. I'm no longer afraid of Donald Trump. I'm actually kind of amused by him. And I don't have to agree with his policies, and I'll probably never vote for the guy, but I see him now as a brother, and he's on his course and his path, and whatever may happen, may happen. But I can join with him where I have a like mind, and I can agree to disagree where I don't have a like mind, and that is going to keep me on my path to enlightenment. And I won't have to re-experience the crucifixion if he's elected president. So what I want to say in summing up my talk for today is we are all enlightened, and we know that. We are all in this room very much open to the experience of love on a daily basis and a day-to-day basis, minute by minute, moment by moment. But when those periods of crucifixion come, and some of them are more challenging than others, let us remember that we have the greatest spiritual technology on the planet, A Course in Miracles. And we can turn to it, turn to any page, turn to any course student, turn to Jesus, and ask for the miracle. And that's my talk for today.